Hey guys, I want to talk with you about the car. Kind of take a closer look at that situation. We're told that Christopher Watt's wife was so successful with one of the many MLMs that she was, what do you call it, that she belonged to, or that she joined, or that she signed up for, that she was so successful that she earned a car. Interesting, because we're also told that the car was a leased vehicle in Christopher Watt's name. So then we're told that because she had such high earnings and such success with that particular MLM, that the MLM would send her a check to pay the car payment, or the lease payment, I should say. Well, as long as she met a certain quota each month. Couple of questions. Okay, hypothetically speaking, you sign up for an MLM and you're really successful at it, and you're convinced that this car offer is legit. So you run on down to the dealership that they tell you to go to, and you choose out of the two choices I think that you have. I think they gave you a choice of one or another color. Was it black or white maybe? I'm not sure. So you ponder that decision, and how nice of them really to leave that up to you. And then you sit down and you fill out the paperwork with the salesman, and you sign on the dotted line and accept full responsibility for the lease payments, because you know in your heart that you've got what it takes to succeed. You know in your heart that as long as you want something bad enough, then it will come to you. You know you're worth it. You know you deserve it. You know that that car had your name on it the day that you signed up with that MLM. Oh, but wait. The salesman says there's a problem. Because in order to sign for the lease, you need to have an income. So your husband steps up and signs the lease paperwork for you. Three months in a row, Christopher Watts did not know it at the time, but for 3 months in a row, his wife was not making the house payments. She was in charge of the money, because she's so good with money. In my opinion, she's really good with other people's money, for sure. But maybe not so good with the money that her husband gave her when he got paid. For 3 months straight, she didn't make the house payment. And for something like a year and a half straight, she didn't make the HOA dues payments either. She didn't have her name on the lease payments. She didn't have her name on the mortgage either. Because my hunch is she didn't have any income at all. Oh, I take that back. I actually do think she had an income. I think she was on disability payments. And I don't think that the money she was receiving from disability was enough to qualify her to be able to sign that lease. Do any of y'all get really sick and tired of all the lies we've been told about this case? Successful? Successful at what? And before any of you take off saying, oh, you're bashing a dead woman, let me tell you something, sweet cheeks. In my opinion, Christopher Watt's wife needed help. And she did not get the help she needed. She was very public with what I think were her cries for help. And nobody helped her. Instead, it seems they expected her to pretend along with them to believe that she was perfect. Well, you know what? Maybe that was part of her problem. Maybe what she needed was to be accepted and loved as a human being. And maybe what she really needed was for somebody to love her enough to get her the help she needed. They couldn't afford that house. They couldn't afford that car. They couldn't afford that daycare center. They couldn't afford all of those quote-unquote free vacations. They sure as hell couldn't afford her shopping habits. And evidently they couldn't afford the dining room table either, because from what I'm being told, it was repossessed. Do you know anybody in your life who has ever had a dining room table repossessed? And don't start in about how maybe it was one of those rent things. Because of the timing of the repossession, I wouldn't believe that at all. Because of the timing of the repossession, I believe that she bought the dining room table with the intent to include it in her bankruptcy. I think Christopher Watt's wife needed help, and I think that it's an absolute tragedy before the tragedy that she didn't get the help she needed. And I think it's also tragic that after her death, people are expected to continue to ignore the obvious.